As a commission, we cannot overemphasize the importance of media. Like my colleague mentioned, especially as a public institution, as a MDA of the government, we see you as the arm that projects both our successes and also as a control arm that will hold us accountable to the people to ensure that we are doing and delivering as promised by the government of the day. So we appreciate that role you play, and my sincere hope and prayer is that over the next coming years, we'll continue to work in that spirit. I also want to use the opportunity to once again thank everyone here for your support. Like I said, towards getting the message to the public, projecting our brand and our work in positive light, and reporting our activities in the telecoms industry in a very fair and concise manner. And I also have to mention, I know how it is getting to events in Lagos. Some of you might have come from the island, some of you might have come from other parts of Lagos. So I also want to thank you for that sacrifice in making the time to be with us here. I will be very brief in my remarks so that I don't take too much of your time, because I know for you people, 24 hours in a day is not enough for you to do your work. So I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. Like my colleague mentioned, it's 100 days in office for me. Not that I plan to celebrate it to the big fanfare, but it's been 100 days of reflection for me, trying to observe and gather my thoughts, engage with stakeholders to really understand what do we need to do as we go into this next phase of the telecoms industry and start my own administration. So I think after reflection, I'll give a brief summary of how we view or how we'll be approaching the next couple of years. And I think the first thing I have to mention, I'll call out 4 areas where I think are going to be areas where we see as the drivers. Number 1 is collaboration. So I think in the spirit of how we've been working with our stakeholders, whether it is government, whether it is yourselves in the media, whether it is even the Nigerian consumer or telecom service, I think collaboration is going to be a very, very strong driver for us. The next driver is going to be being data-centric. I think we're living in a digital age, and as a regulator of the telecoms infrastructure, it goes without saying that we are sitting or in a pole position to be able to leverage the data which flows through our communication network to be able to make decisions that are well informed. So everything we do, we're going to be, as much as possible, be data driven. So we're going to be driving the collection of a lot of data from our stakeholders and also using that to project the work we're doing so that we can have a high level of transparency. Because what you don't measure and hold people accountable to, you cannot drive efficiency and performance. Compliance is also another driver. So, of course, as a regulator, as empowered by the NCA Act and regulations we've put in place, we have the powers to hold our licensees to their obligations. So over the past couple of years, I think the industry has been in what I would say a development phase, but it's time we push ourselves into a maturity phase, whereby we'll be really driving compliance. So compliance is going to be something you're going to be seeing drive very strongly. Whatever our licensees have an obligation to meet, we will be expecting them to meet those obligations. If they have agreements between themselves, we will be expecting licensees who will interact with media, how we present our information. So we're really going to be using digitalization to drive those efficiencies so that we can do a lot more, but with less effort from human beings. So rely more on machines. So those are the drivers. So I'll talk now a little bit about the actual strategy and focus areas that I see us focusing on. So we're going to take a slightly different approach and view it from a stakeholder perspective. We're focusing on our three major stakeholders. Stakeholder number one, of course, is the telecom consumer, whichever stakeholder you belong to, you are part of that stakeholder. And we also have the actual industry itself, so both the licensees and potential investors. And lastly, we have the government. So what we are looking at is an approach whereby we look at the needs of each of those stakeholder groups. Of course, starting with the consumer, in one sentence or few words, what they are looking for, or 4 words, is the total quality of experience. So we're going to be driving that total quality of experience right from the point of how they find and select telecom services. So moving away from sort of subjective opinion where is it MTN, is it Glo, is it Maida or Airtel, which one do I use today? We all agree it's something that we rely on the person next to us. But we need to move into a realm whereby this can be something that, like I said, the data is one of our drivers where we can leverage data to be able to empower consumers to make the right choice. So that we move away from the world where we have multiple SIM devices, because all we want to actually do is ensure that wherever we are, we're connected. And my dream is that that can be achieved by just having one device and one SIM. Moving away from where we are today, where we have to have multiple devices and multiple SIMs. And of course, in the areas of your usage, things like the data tariffs, and speeds and coverage, these are areas where we'll be working with our licensees to really drive things, to see how can we make the tariffs simpler and more transparent. How can we enlighten the consumers to them to understand the habits that drive greater data usage? Because as we upgrade our phones, we are buying phones with stronger, better cameras, which are producing better quality pictures, which we all enjoy and we want more of. But what we don't realize is that those things are actually consuming a lot more data. So we also need to be a bit of enlightenment there. But also, like I said, created more transparency around the tariffs. And of course, other areas around the support. So we're going to again drive transparency there, moving away from reporting issues that have been escalated to us, but also looking at what is being escalated to our licensees, the operators, and stepping in as a regulator, see what are the trends, what are the common issues, what are the operators doing about it, so that I can really hold everybody in the value chain accountable. And of course, we'll be looking at areas to just improve the general security and integrity from a consumer perspective. Because where we sit in the communications space is at the very bottom of digital. We provide the backbone for all the industries, whether it's insurance, aviation, everybody relies on digital communications infrastructure. But today, you would agree with me, sometimes the security and integrity of our mobile, when we don't use it for a while, it has to be recycled. Are we really aware of the consequences that it creates a window for potential fraud? So these are all of the kind of things that we want to drive enlightenment and see if we can create platforms that when people off board, I'm using the word off board for people when people no longer use a number, or there's a window whereby somebody can highlight that number. Can we even create platforms that will enable other industries to come and check what is the status of such a number? And also put in regulation that brings in consequences. If you use a number for fraud today, financial fraud, or you use it for fraud in another sector, there's no consequence. So we're looking at bringing in the right regulational framework that there can be consequences for this kind of act so that consumer confidence can grow. Then if I move on to my next stakeholder, which is the industry, made up of my licenses. I think generally what we want to do is to improve the resilience of the industry. So we're looking at reviewing the operating standards and introducing operating standards which are more in line with international best practices and also in the area of corporate governance. And also, the challenge they have thrown back to us when we have demanded that they improve services is that we also need to improve our regulatory services. So we're hoping to leverage technology and also reduce some of our internal processes so that our turnaround time for our own regulatory services are greatly improved. We're also going to be doing a bit of advocacy in the areas of pushing for critical national infrastructure. We made quite a bit of progress in that area, but the advocacy continues. We're hoping at some stage there'll be an announcement on that through the Honorable Minister. And of course, graciously made the leap and they are trusting us to now deliver on the promise. Also, the areas of multiple taxation, we're working closely on providing information and gathering information on behalf of the industry and engaging the presidential tax committee. Then moving on to the last stakeholder, which is government, I think as contained in the Honorable Minister's blueprint, which I want to mention, all we are doing in terms of policy and direction is being derived from that blueprint, which made my job a lot easier because when I resumed, it was already released in the public domain, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. So for the stakeholders in government, I think it's very clear and simple. We need to grow the industry. So we need to see us contributing more to the GDP in absolute terms. I think even in the percentage terms, will be glad for me to, I'll be pleased if we can grow. But my expectation, since it's one government, is that all sectors will be growing. So I think the real thing we should be looking at is our growth in absolute terms. But of course, with that, job creations and increased economic activity will happen. Another area which we are going to be looking at a lot is the facilitation of cross industry and sector collaboration. So, like I mentioned earlier, that we in the communication sector, everything sits on top of us. And we are the ones who enable other industries to innovate and subsequently grow. So that's also an area that we're going to be driving very hard for the government. As the Honorable Minister, I'm sure you picked up in the past couple of days and weeks, I've been talking a lot of digital public infrastructure. And at the core of that is the communications infrastructure, which will drive the digital initiatives of all the other sectors. So I think, in a nutshell, that's a summary of our approach and our strategy in the next coming years, looking at it both from a stakeholder perspective, those three key stakeholders, and really focusing first on what do they need. The consumer just wants improved quality of service, not just during the usage bits, whether it's in coverage, speed, and quality, but the total experience, right from how do you find that selling these services to when you offboard from the service. And of course, like I said, the licensees, what we need to do is move out of the development phase of the industry and try to make the industry more resilient. So moving into a more mature phase. And the key thing there is for us to establish and strengthen the operational frameworks in place and also institutionalize corporate governance. And for the government, like I said, it's in one sentence, we need to grow the industry and in absolute terms, increase our contribution to GDP. So from my brief remarks, I hope you would appreciate, under my leadership, the direction of where I'm hoping to take us as a commission and the industry, aligned to the blueprint of the Honorable Minister of the Ministry of Economy and Communications and Innovations. These initiatives are designed to foster inclusiveness, and like I said, one of the pillars or drivers is collaboration. So, to end my short remark and speech, this is also me making an appeal to you, the media, that we seek your cooperation, your friendship, and your collaboration. Let's tell the positive story of what we are doing. And I also want you to keep us in check. Act as a check and balance, hold us accountable. I'm being very brief on what I've said, but I hope you understand the direction. So please measure us, and we will be, like I said, data driven. So moving forward, you'll be seeing a lot of data. We're going to make some changes in the way we present our information to make it easier for every stakeholder, including yourselves, to access. But we'd also appreciate that the good that we've done, projected. Where you feel that we are not listening to a certain section, or I would say not listening, but we have not heard properly a certain section of our stakeholders, we'd also appreciate that you bring that to our attention. So once again, I'd like to sincerely thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules during the week. And on behalf of the Commission and myself, thank you once again, and I look forward to working with you very closely in the coming years. Thank you.